All right, everybody. This is now month 2 for our block of the month, and this is what the square will look like when we are finished. Of course, you may have a white or the blue background, but you make 2 of these. So we're going to get started with our cutting. Hello, everybody. All right, we are going to be starting now with block 2, month 2, and we are going to be creating 2 of the same blocks for this month. And so what we're going to start out with is cutting our fabric. I suggest on this block, when you press your fabric before you cut it, hit it with some best press. It will help keep it from stretching as much. I just used Mary Ellen's best press. I like that because we have some stuff on the bias, so that will help keep it from stretching. So the first thing we want to do is our background fabric. So you will find in month 2 your background fabric that is 12.5 inches wide. We need to cut several widths of fabric. I am going to use the Stripology ruler. So what I've done with the background fabric is I have folded it in half and then folded it in half again, salvage to salvage. So now I have 4 layers. I'm going to use the Stripology ruler today for this. So on the Stripology ruler, I'm going to line that up. I need 1 width of fabric that is 4 inches. So I'm going to cut at the 0, 4, 1.5, and then we need 1 that is 2.5, 1, 2.5, and then we need 1 that's 1 3/4. So to get the 1 3/4, I am going to remove those first 3 that I cut out. The fabric is 1/4 inch to the left of the 0 mark, and we need 1 3/4 for this one. So we got 1/4 there, and then I'm going to use the 1.5 line, which will give me 1 3/4. That's the width of fabrics that we cut out for our kit. We are going to take the strip of fabric that was cut at 4 inches wide. We are going to make 4 4-inch squares. So I still have it folded in half, so there's 2 layers, and I'm going to make the 4 4-inch squares. So I'm cutting at 4, cutting at 8, and there goes me my 4 4-inch squares. This isn't the extra piece. We can save that for if you have any oopsies down the road. There's my 4 4-inch squares. Next, we're going to take the 1 3/4 strip that we cut, and we need to subcut 8 1 3/4 by 3 and 1 3/4 by 16. We need a total of 8 that are cut 3 inches out of this strip. So this is double layered. So now we have 8 rectangles that are 1 3/4 by 3 inches. This last strip, we want to cut this 16 inches. So I'm just going to place that on there, line up my ruler, and then cut it at 16 inches. Next, we are going to take the background width of fabric that was 1.5, and we are going to cut this into 4 1.5 by 10.5. So I'm going to leave this double layered, make sure that's nice lined up, and I'm going to cut this at 10.5 inches long. So I want to make sure a little bit's hanging outside the ruler and I'm inside the salvage, because we're going to cut at 0, 10.5, and 10.5 plus 10.5 is 21, so we're going to cut right at the edge of the ruler. So there's my 4 10.5 by 1.5 strips. Then we're going to take the 2.5-inch strip from our background, and we're going to subcut this into 2 12.5-inch strips. So I'm just going to leave it double layered, and so line up my Stripology ruler, and we're going to cut this at 12.5. So there's my 2 12.5-inch by 2.5. This is my extra. So that is the background that we have cut out. Next, we are going to take our L4 fabric. So we're going to take this fabric here, we're going to fold it in half, and then fold it in half again, because I'm using the Stripology ruler. And we're going to cut this down to 3.5 inches wide. And then once we cut this down to 3.5 inches wide, we are going to subcut this into 8 3.5-inch squares. So again, make sure my fabric is nice and lined up. We want 3.5. So when using the stripology ruler, I am going to cut at 0, 3.5, 7, 10.5, 14, 17.5. We have a little bit extra. We got 2, 4, 6, 8. Well, we had more, but we only needed 4 out of that. Now we want to take our M1, and this is a strip that came from month 1. We want to cut 4 4-inch squares. And this strip is already cut at 4 inches. So we're just going to line this up, and we're going to cut 4 4-inch squares. So if it's not straight on your ruler, you can adjust that a little bit. And we have a little bit of fabric left over. And there's our 4 4-inch squares. Next, we are going to take our D4. Now the D4, we're going to cut this down to a 2-inch strip. So I'm going to fold this in half, fold it in half again, and we're going to cut a 2-inch strip out of this D4. We're going to take that strip, and we need one that is 1 26 inches wide. So it's easier if I just cut this down to a 16-inch strip for what I need for this month. So I need 16-inch long strip, so I'm going to cut that first. This remainder piece, this one is going to go into month 5, and we're going to subcut this down to 1 3/4. So what I did is I cut the edge off, and then zeros here, and I'm a 1/4 inch to the left, so I'm going to cut this at 1.5. And now we have a 16-inch strip by 1 3/4. So that is your cutting this month for month 2. Now we are going to go into putting the pieces together.